Hey, nappy friend. Welcome back to our nappy little club. You're home now, and we saved your spot. Tonight we are heading back, way back, to a time of linen tunics, sprawling empires, and wonders of the world made not of digital bits, but of sweat, stone, and sheer audacity. We are off to ancient Alexandria to stand atop the legendary Pharos Lighthouse. You'll feel the salty Mediterranean breeze, the immense, radiating heat of the Great Fire, and the profound, crushing loneliness of being the keeper of the most important light in the ancient world. It's a job with a heck of a view and an absolutely brutal commute up a few hundred feet of stairs. You probably wouldn't survive the first week, let's be honest, but here in our cozy space, you're safe, relaxed, and you don't even have to get your sandals dusty, Dot. So, before your eyelids get too heavy, if you genuinely enjoy what I do here, tap that like button and subscribe to keep our sleepy adventures coming. After all, nobody wants to miss out on history, right? Go ahead and let us all know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is. It's a quiet, wonderful way for our little community to feel connected across the globe, from one sleepy room to another, Dot. So, dim your lights, tune into the soft, comforting fan hum, and ease gently into tonight's journey, because you're now officially in Nappy Community. You're not just listening, you're an essential part of our Nappy family, where every night is soothing, special, and yours. You're safe, valued, and always welcome. The awakening is not gentle. It's a silent, internal command, sharper than any rooster's crow. Before the first hint of gray light has even thought about touching the eastern horizon, your eyes are open. You are Demetrios, and the fire awaits. You lie for a moment on the simple straw mattress in your small stone-walled room at the very base of the great lighthouse. The air is cool and thick with the smell of the sea, a constant companion. Through the thick walls of the Pharos' square first tier, the boisterous sounds of Alexandria's port are muffled into a distant, gentle hum, the ghost of a city that never truly sleeps. But up here, in the keeper's quarters, there is only a profound stillness, the kind that settles deep in your bones. You swing your legs off the cot, your bare feet meeting the cold, smooth flagstones. There's no time to waste. The great flame, your charge, will have consumed most of its fuel through the night, and it must be burning brightly to greet the dawn traders and the last of the night-sailing grain ships from Rome. You pull on a simple linen tunic and your worn leather sandals, their soles smoothed by countless journeys up the tower's core. Your breakfast, a piece of hard bread and a few olives, can wait. A fire cannot dot you step out of your chamber into the heart of the beast. You are inside the lowest square section of the lighthouse, and before you is not a staircase, but a great spiraling ramp. This is one of the marvels of the Pharos that sailors and merchants never see. It's wide enough for 2 laden donkeys to pass, its stone floor grooved by centuries of their plodding hooves and the wheels of small carts. This ramp, a grand internal highway, winds its way up through the entire first stage of the tower. It's a testament to the genius of its architect, Sostratus of Cnidus. You sometimes pause to run your hand over the stone near the base, where you know his inscription is hidden. The official dedication is to the gods and the Ptolemaic kings, written in grand letters on plaster for all to see. But Sostratus, in a brilliant act of what might be the world's first case of corporate defiance, carved his own name into the stone underneath. Sostratus of Cnidus, son of Dexiphanes, to the savior gods, for those who sail the seas. The plaster will fade, he must have thought, but the stone and his name will endure. A quiet, clever little joke for the ages. Your journey begins. The first few spirals are in near total darkness, and you navigate by touch and memory alone. Your hand skims the cool, sometimes damp, limestone wall. The only sound is the soft slap of your sandals and your own steady breathing, echoing in the vast, enclosed space. As you ascend, small slit-like windows begin to appear, arranged in a perfect, repeating pattern. They offer no view, only thin slices of pre-dawn gloom, but they allow a trickle of air to stir the otherwise stagnant atmosphere. You pass one of the night shift donkeys on its way down, its handler giving you a silent, weary nod. The animals. Warm, musky smell briefly overpowers the scent of salt and stone. This is their domain, the lower highway. Their union is clearly better than yours. Their workday ends here. You reach the top of the first stage, a wide, open platform 100 feet in the air. Here, the ramp ends. The fuel massive stacks of dried, resinous wood, imported from distant forests, is piled high, brought this. Far by the animals. From here on, it's all you. The tower narrows here, transitioning from its square base to an octagonal midsection. The ascent continues via a steeper, narrower spiral staircase. You hoist a heavy leather satchel of the most flammable, resin-rich logs onto your shoulder and begin the second part of your commute. This is where the real work begins. The steps are worn into shallow bowls in the center from the feet of generations of keepers. The air grows warmer, carrying the first real scent of smoke. The debate among Alexandria's engineers and scholars is how, precisely, the fuel for the very top was lifted in the old days. Some argue for a complex system of winches and pulleys, a mechanical lift running through the tower's core. Others, more practical, insist it was always as it is now, sheer manpower. You are living proof of the latter theory. Every log, every drop of oil for the smaller lamps, makes its final journey on the back of a keeper dot as you climb the octagonal section. Then the final cylindrical peak, the heat becomes a physical presence. It presses in on you, dry and immense. The stone of the walls is warm to the touch. You can hear it now, the deep, whooshing roar of the great fire, a caged sun waiting for its breakfast. Finally, you emerge into the lantern chamber. The blast of heat and wind is staggering. It's an open-air pavilion, a circle of massive stone pillars supporting a roof high above, with a fire pit at its center. The view is breathtaking, a panorama of the world from a god's perspective. To the west, the sleeping city of Alexandria. To the east, the great sea, merging with the sky just beginning to blush from purple to a soft, hopeful rose. And in the center, the heart of it all, the embers of the great fire, glowing with a deep orange intensity, pulsing like a living thing. Your work and your day has just begun. Asterisk, the morning sun, now free of the horizon, begins its slow, majestic climb. The fire, satiated and strong, burns with a clean, white-hot intensity, its smoke carried far out to sea on the morning breeze. For a brief moment, you allow yourself to simply stand at the edge of the lantern gallery, absorbing the first true warmth of the day. The marble beneath your feet is already shedding the night's deep chill. Below you, the city of Alexandria unfurls like a painted scroll. From this height, you can see it all. The grand canopic way, the manicured gardens of the royal quarter, the gleaming rooftops of the Mauseon and the great library. And of course, the harbor, which is now stirring to life. Tiny figures dockworkers. Sailors, merchants move with purpose, their shouts and calls too distant to be anything more than a faint textural hum. Your own breakfast is a far quieter affair. You retreat to a small, shaded alcove out of the wind and pull a piece of hard barley bread and a handful of wrinkled, salt-cured olives from a pouch at your belt. You chew slowly, methodically, your eyes never leaving the port. A massive Roman grain barge, heavy and low in the water, is being carefully guided past the Heptastadian causeway by a fleet of smaller tugboats. You watch its slow progress, imagining the months it spent at sea, its crew scanning the horizon for the first faint glint of your light. You are the first and last piece of Egypt they will see. It's a strange and heavy thought to have over a breakfast that would be considered meager by even the poorest fishermen below. You are the pivot upon which the wealth of nations turns, and your reward is this spectacular, lonely view. The day's work is not heavy, but it is endless. It is a war of attrition against time and the elements. Your primary foe is the sea salt. It is in the air you breathe, a fine crystalline dust that settles on everything, relentlessly seeking to corrode and destroy. Your first task is to inspect the marble facing of the lantern chamber. The Pharos is famed for its brilliant white sheen, a feature designed to make it almost as visible by day as it is by night. You walk the circumference of the gallery, your eyes scanning the massive, expertly fitted blocks. You run your hand over the seams, feeling for any new gaps where the mortar may have crumbled. You look for the telltale hairline cracks, the small signs of weakness that the winter storms will seek to exploit. You are less a keeper and more a physician, performing a daily checkup on your colossal patient. It's a good thing you're not afraid of heights. A less charitable observer might call you the world's most overqualified window washer. Just without the windows dot in the center of the tower's life is a simple but ingenious piece of technology, the pulley basket. This is your lifeline, your connection to the tiny world at your feet. It's a large, sturdy wicker basket attached to a thick rope that runs through a series of bronze wheels, allowing you to lower and raise goods from the courtyard at the base. Around mid-morning, you lower the basket with a slate tablet inside, a chalk note requesting a new coil of rope and a fresh supply of oil for the smaller signal lamps. Hours will pass. You will continue your work. Then, a bell, far below, will chime 3 times. That's your signal. You will go to the winch, a large, man-powered capstan, and begin the long, arduous task of hoisting the basket. It's a slow, muscle-straining process, and as the basket rises, it sways gently in the wind, a tiny, fragile pendulum against the immense stone wall. Inside today's delivery, alongside the rope and oil, is a small, cloth-wrapped parcel, a still warm piece of baked fish and some flatbread, a gift from the cooks below. You eat your lunch with a gratitude that feels profound, a small taste of community delivered across a vertical void of 300 feet. The afternoon is for the fuel. The great pyre doesn't just burn any old timber. This is a topic of some debate in the hushed halls of the library, where scholars who have never felt the heat of the flame argue about the precise science of your work. They write scrolls theorizing about exotic woods or chemical treatments. The reality, as you know it, is both simpler and more complex. You spend an hour sorting the wood that was brought up the night before. The bulk of it is acacia, plentiful, and dry, which provides the long-lasting, steady heat. But the real magic is in the logs of pine from the mountains of Cilicia, so rich in resin that they weep sticky tears in the afternoon sun. It is this resin that creates the brilliant, almost explosive light, the piercing beam that sailors claim to see from a day's journey away. You stack these logs separately, a special reserve to be added at key moments during the night. You also have a small, heavy sack of powdered material, a closely guarded secret of the keepers. It's a mineral, ground to a fine dust. A handful, tossed into the fire, reduces the black smoke and makes the flames burn with an almost unnatural greenish-white intensity. You have no idea what it is, only that it works. A piece of practical alchemy passed down from one keeper to the next. Hours stretch. The sun crawls across the sky, its heat baking the white marble until the air shimmers. The wind is your only constant companion, a ceaseless whisper that coils through the pillars. Sometimes it carries faint, distorted sounds from the city, clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the braying of a donkey, a fragment of a song, and for a moment you feel connected. Then the wind shifts, and there is only the vast, empty silence of the sky. You find yourself talking to the gulls that wheel and glide on the updrafts, their sharp cries the only other voice you hear. You argue with one particularly bold bird, who seems to think the top of the lantern is his personal perch. He, at least, is a consistent visitor. You reflect that down in the city. People travel for weeks and pay a fortune to hear a priestess at an oracle utter a few cryptic words. Your daily prophecies delivered free of charge by the universe. You are very, very high up, and the most important thing is to not fall off. As the afternoon wanes, a profound sense of isolation settles over you. You are a ghost haunting the pinnacle of the world, watching life happen at a scale that renders it abstract. You are utterly alone, yet responsible for thousands. The sun finally kisses the western horizon, and for a few precious moments, the world is drenched in liquid gold. The white marble of the Pharos catches the dying light and seems to glow from within, as if it has stored a day's worth of sunlight, and is now releasing it in a final, glorious sigh. From your vantage point, the city of Alexandria is a masterpiece painted by the gods, its buildings casting long, sharp shadows, the great harbor a pool of molten copper. This is the keeper's dividend, the quiet payment for a day of solitude. It's a moment of peace so profound it almost makes you forget the immense task that awaits. Almost, because as the gold fades to purple and the first bold stars prick, a darkening velvet of the sky, the air grows cold. The night does not merely arrive. It falls, and it is your job to catch it. The transition from day watch to night watch is marked by a shift in energy. The languid pace of the afternoon vanishes, replaced by a focused, urgent ritual. The great fire, which you have tended all day to keep it low and efficient, must now be reborn into a raging nocturnal beacon. You don't work alone at this crucial hour. Another keeper, Thaman, his face already smudged with soot, joins you. There is no need for words. You have performed this dance 1,000 times. Your first task is to clear the pyre. Armed with long-handled iron rakes, you step into the circle of heat. It's a physical assault, a wave of shimmering warmth that makes the air wavy and your tunic stick to your back. Together, you pull away the day's accumulation of gray ash, pushing it into designated channels in the floor where it will cool and be removed in the morning. What remains is a deep bed of glowing crimson embers, the living heart of the old. Fire. This heart must not be allowed to die. Now, you build. It is an art form, a piece of temporary architecture designed for destruction. You begin by laying a crisscross pattern of smaller, dry logs over the embers, creating a lattice that will allow air to flow. Then come the heavy acacia logs, the workhorses of the fire, stacked in a hollow square. It's like building a log cabin destined for a glorious, immediate demolition. You have to be quick, but precise. A poorly built pyre will smolder and smoke, casting a hazy, useless glow. A well-built one will roar. You consider for a moment that the fire is the most demanding creature you have ever known. It's a hungry, ungrateful pet that must be fed on a strict schedule, lest it allows a few dozen tons of premium Roman wheat to be accidentally redistributed amongst the coastal rocks. With the main structure built, Bayman brings a torch lit from the most vibrant of the embers. He hands it to you. This is the keeper's privilege. You murmur a quiet prayer to Hephaestus and Poseidon. It never hurts to have both the god of the flame and the god of the sea on your side, and thrust the torch into the hollow core of the pyre. For a heartbeat, nothing happens. Then a low whoosh as the dry kindling catches. A flicker of orange becomes a lick of flame, which becomes a hungry leap. Within a minute, the entire structure is engulfed, and you are driven back by the sheer force of the heat as the fire roars to life. A column of incandescent fury that paints the underside of the stone roof with dancing, demonic light. The darkness has been beaten back. The fire alone, however, is just a bonfire. The true wonder of the Pharos, the secret to its legendary range, is what happens next. This is the subject of endless, often wildly inaccurate, speculation from visiting dignitaries and scholars. They talk of magic, of impossibly large lenses. The truth is a marvel of engineering and a massive pain to operate. Against one side of the chamber rests a colossal, curved sheet of bronze, polished to a mirror sheen. Historians of the future will debate endlessly whether this reflector was used at night, but for you, the debate is absurd. Without it, you're just a landmark. With it, you are a star, using a complex system of capstans and bronze levers that, grown in protest, you and Damon begin to move the great reflector into place behind the fire. It's heavy, dangerous work. For all the great minds in the Mausion below, contemplating the ethereal nature of being, you doubt any of them have had to wrestle a multi-ton sheet of superheated metal into perfect alignment. It certainly keeps one grounded in the practicalities of existence. Slowly, painstakingly, you pivot the massive bronze mirror until it captures the roaring pyre. The effect is instantaneous and breathtaking. The diffuse, ambient glow of the fire is gathered, focused, and projected outwards into a single, piercingly bright beam of light that slices through the night. The light of 1,000 torches, concentrated into one unwavering spear. You can feel its power, a steady, silent pressure against your skin. This is the light that the historian Josephus would write about, the beam that sailors swear they can see from beyond the curve of the world dot with the beacon established. The rhythm of the night begins. One of you will watch while the other rests in a nearby chamber, but sleep is never deep. Every hour, the bell chimes, and the keeper on duty must feed the fire. You add the dense acacia logs for heat, and when a ship is known to be approaching, the most treacherous shoals, you add one of the precious resin-rich pine logs. It ignites with a crackle and a spray of sparks, temporarily doubling the brightness of the beam. Between these feedings, you stand watch. The world is reduced to three things: the roaring fire, the endless wind, and the sky. Oh, the sky. Free from any competing light, the heavens are a spectacle of impossible beauty. You see the river of the Milky Way, the steady lights of the planets, the familiar shapes of the constellations that guide the very sailors you protect. You trace the shape of the Great Bear and find the North Star, a humble counterpart to your own man-made beacon. You see a shooting star, blaze a quick, silent trail across the abyss, and think of making a wish. But then you look at the powerful beam cutting through the darkness, a promise of safety and home, and realize it would be greedy to ask for anything more. You are already in the business of granting them. The rhythm of your life, once as predictable as the tides, has begun to falter. The change is not sudden, not a dramatic shift, but a series of quiet, discordant notes in a familiar song. It begins on a placid afternoon, the sky a flawless bowl. Of blue, the sea calm. You are performing one of the most meditative and mundane of your tasks, polishing the great bronze reflector. The work is laborious, requiring a circular motion with a soft cloth and a fine abrasive paste, but it produces a satisfying result, turning the dull metal into a swirling vortex of liquid gold. As you work, you feel it a faint, deep hum that seems to come from the stone itself, vibrating up through the soles of your sandals and into your bones. A bucket of water beside you shivers, its surface breaking into a web of concentric ripples. You freeze, hand hovering over the bronze. The world is perfectly still, yet it moved. The ever-present gulls that circle the lantern fall silent. A moment stretches, taut and strange, and then it passes. The vibration is gone. You chalk it up to the building settling, a resonance from some distant storm on the sea. But as you return to your polishing, you find your rhythm is gone, replaced by a quiet, gnawing question. Days later, the donkeys protest. The sturdy, stoic animals that have spent their lives plodding up and down the great internal ramp simply stop. They refuse to take the first turn of the spiral, their eyes wide with a primal fear that no amount of coaxing or cursing from their handlers can overcome. You watch the scene from an upper landing, a traffic jam of stubborn beasts at the base of the world's tallest lighthouse. Damon jokes that they've finally unionized for better pay, but you see the genuine terror in their stance. Animals, they say, know things that men have forgotten how to sense. That day, the keepers carry twice the load of wood up the narrow staircases, and a new layer of tension settles over the tower with the evening dust. These are the portents, the whispers of an unquiet earth that ancient peoples have always watched for. You begin to notice other things. The water in the deep cistern at the base of the Pharos, usually sweet and clear, has become murky, tasting faintly of minerals and mud. At night, during your watch, you hear new sounds. Not the familiar groans of cooling stone, or the mournful song of the bronze tritons in the wind, but sharp, percussive cracks from deep within the tower's core, as if a giant were snapping his knuckles inside the masonry. You and the other keepers perform inspections, running your hands over the massive, interlocking blocks of limestone, but you find nothing. The structure is, as it has always been, a masterpiece of stability. You look at the colossal stones, so perfectly fitted that a knife's blade cannot be slipped between them, and you take comfort in the genius of Sostratus. Surely, this monument was built to defy the very gods. Historians and engineers of the future might debate whether the builders used specific anti-seismic techniques, like lead sheeting in the joints for flexibility. But for you, the proof is in the sheer, overwhelming mass of it all. This tower is not a building. It is a man-made mountain. It cannot fall. You try to rationalize the strange occurrences, to weave them into the tapestry of the normal. One evening, while sipping a hot brew of chamomile, you watch the surface of the liquid tremble in your cup, and you tell yourself it's just a shiver in your own hand from the day's exertion. Later, Damon calls you over to the edge of the gallery. He points down, not at the city, but at the sea. A long, unnatural-looking swell is rolling towards the harbor, out of sync with the wind and the waves. It's a silent, ominous ripple on an otherwise calm surface. The sea is restless, he says, his voice low. You both know this is more than the whims of Poseidon. You recall tales from grizzled sailors, stories of entire cities in the Greek Isles being shaken, of harbors, where the sea drew back to the horizon only to return in a furious wave. You had always considered them exaggerations, the kind of tall tales men tell over cheap wine. Now you are not so sure. The great seismic belt of the Mediterranean, an unpredictable serpent, is stirring in its sleep. The other keepers feel it. 2. The easy camaraderie of the shared duty has been replaced by a clipped, watchful silence. Jokes become rare, and when they are told, they are tinged with a nervous, gallows humor. After one particularly sharp jolt in the dead of night that rattles the pottery in the kitchens, you find Damon staring at the steady flame of the great pyre. Well, he says, without looking at you, at least something in this world is still holding steady. You share a look that needs no words. The shared pretense is over. You are all afraid. The breaking point comes on a heavy, humid evening. The air is unnaturally still. The sky a strange yellowish gray. There is no wind, yet the great fire seems to gutter and dance, its flames pulling away from the wood as if in a phantom breeze. You are preparing to hoist the great bronze reflector into place when the tower lurches. It is not a vibration this time, but a violent, sickening sway. It is the feeling of being on the deck of a ship hit by a rogue wave. You are thrown against a stone pillar, the air knocked from your lungs. The immense bronze reflector, jarred, from its moorings swings free, striking one of the massive pillars with a deafening, bell-like clang that echoes through the entire structure. The fire roars in protest. Dust and small fragments of mortar rain down from the ceiling. The swaying stops as suddenly as it began, leaving behind a ringing silence and the frantic pounding of your own heart. You look at Damon, his face pale. As marble in the firelight, this was no settling stone. This was a warning. The mountain was stirring. For a long, ringing moment, there is only the echo of the great bronze gong and the frantic hammering of your own heart. You and Damon are frozen, statues of soot-stained shock, your minds refusing to process the violence of the lurch. Dust, a fine powder of ancient mortar, drifts down from the ceiling like a gentle, insidious snow. A foolish, desperate thought flits through your mind. That was it. The worst is over. You even manage a shaky breath, a prelude to a nervous joke you will never get to make. Because that was not the earthquake. That was merely the overture. The real sound does not come through your ears. It arrives through the soles of your feet. It is a deep, grinding, subterranean roar, the sound of the very bones of the world being broken. And then the floor ceases to be a floor. It drops, a gut-wrenching lurch that leaves you momentarily weightless, before thrusting upwards with bone-jarring violence. You are thrown from your feet as if by a giant's hand. The concept of up and down becomes a chaotic memory. The mighty Pharos, your steadfast, unshakable mountain of stone, has become a whip in the hand of a furious god, and you are trapped at its very tip. Your world dissolves into a nightmare of sensory overload. The roar from below is joined by the high-pitched shriek of stone grinding against stone above you. The massive pillars of the lantern chamber, which have stood for centuries, seem to bend like reeds in a storm. Your hand, scrabbling for purchase, finds only skittering, bucking marble. You slam into the base of one of the pillars, the impact a dull thud somewhere in the cacophony, and cling to it with the desperation of a drowning man clinging to a log. Through the blur of motion and the rain of dust, you see the apocalypse. The great fire, your sacred charge, is violently disgorged from its pyre. A wave of burning logs, incandescent embers, and superheated ash cascades across the chamber, setting fire to rope, wooden tools, and the cloaks of the keepers. The magnificent bronze reflector, the pride of the Pharos, is lifted into the air, crumpled like a sheet of papyrus, and slammed back down onto the floor, its resonant clang now a dull, final thud. It is no longer a mirror. It is a tombstone. A sound like a thunderclap directly overhead draws your eyes upward. A crack, a black and jagged lightning bolt, spiders across the roof of the lantern chamber. You watch in horror as one of the colossal marble support pillars fractures at its base, hangs for an impossible second, and then topples outwards into the screaming darkness, taking a whole section of the roof with it. For the first time in its history, the top of the Pharos is open to the night sky, a jagged wound against the terrified stars. This is how it happens, you realize. The historical accounts of earthquakes always mention the upper sections falling. First, you are living inside a history that is being violently unwritten. You see Damon across the chaos, his leg trapped beneath a fallen beam, his face a mask of terror in the flickering light of a dozen new fires. You open your mouth to shout his name, but the sound is swallowed by the pandemonium. Your gaze is drawn upwards again by a flash of movement. One of the smaller bronze statues of a triton, perched on the edge of the roof for centuries, its horn, shaped to sing in the wind, is torn from its base. It falls, not with a crash, but with a silent, graceful arc. A forgotten god cast out of a collapsing heaven, plummeting 300 feet to the churning sea below. It is a moment of terrible, Surreal beauty. The tower shrieks, and you see a seam between two of the giant limestone blocks burst open, not 10 feet from you. For a fraction of a second, in the hellish light, you see what held the wonders of the world together. Not magic, not just gravity, but a thick, dark layer of mortar, and within it, a massive lead dovetail clamp. You watch the mortar pulverize into explosive dust, and the thick lead clamp stretch, contort, and then snap with a sharp crack. Archaeologists of a distant future might debate the finer points of Ptolemaic construction, but you have seen the truth. Even the strongest bonds forged by man are as thread against the fury of the earth. You are no longer a keeper. You are an tivith, animal driven by the purest instinct to survive. You scramble away from a collapsing wall, the stone blocks landing where you were moments before with a ground-shaking impact. A river of burning embers flows towards you, and you crawl backwards, the heat scorching your tunic. The thought, insane and absurd, flashes through your mind. They don't pay us enough for this. Your entire life has been dedicated to this tower, to its light, to its routine. Now, as the world ends around you, another part of your brain, the part that has been a keeper for 20 years, screams a silent, mad protest. The light is out. The light is out. The violent shaking seems to last for an eternity. A lifetime of terror compressed into a minute. Then, as gradually as it began, the intensity lessens. The world-ending roar subsides into a deep, continuous rumble. The violent whipping motion becomes a series of shuddering aftershocks. The Pharos is still, broken, but standing. You are lying on the floor, the air so thick with dust you cannot breathe, your ears ringing, every muscle screaming in protest. You push a chunk of fallen masonry off your chest and drag yourself into a sitting position. The lantern chamber is a ruin. It is a cave, open to the sky, littered with rubble and burning debris. The great fire is gone. The mirror is destroyed. The light of Alexandria, the star that never sets, is dead. The ringing in your ears slowly fades, replaced by the crackle of a dozen small fires and the low, pained groan of the wounded tower. Dust, thick and suffocating, coats your tongue and stings your eyes. Every breath is a gritty battle. For a long moment, you simply sit, a spectator in the ruins of your own life. The adrenaline that fueled your survival begins to ebb, leaving behind a deep, aching shock and a searing pain in your shoulder where you met the pillar. But you are alive, and you are not alone. Damon, your voice is a raw croak, barely, audible above the hiss of the flames. A weak groan answers from across the wrecked chamber. Hope, sharp and fierce, cuts through your days. You get to your feet, your legs unsteady, and begin to stumble through the treacherous landscape of rubble. You find him half buried beneath a massive wooden beam that was once part of the roof. Structure, his face pale and beaded with sweat in the flickering, chaotic light. His leg is trapped, bent at an unnatural angle. I thought you'd gone for a swim with the Triton. He rasps, a ghost of a smile on his dust-caked lips. And miss all this? You reply, your own attempt at humor, sounding hollow and brittle. Stay still. The beam is immensely heavy. You try to lift it, your muscles screaming in protest, but it won't budge. Panic begins to bubble in your chest, but you force it down. You are a keeper. You solve problems. You scan the wreckage, your eyes landing on a long, sturdy piece of a shattered pillar support. A lever. You wedge one end under the heavy beam, place a smaller block of stone beneath it as a fulcrum, and throw your entire body weight onto the other end. The timber groans. You push harder, the muscles in your back and shoulders straining to their absolute limit. Slowly, agonizingly, the beam lifts just enough. Now, Damon, slide out. He drags himself free with a cry of pain. His leg clearly broken. You tear a strip of cloth from your own tunic and fashion a crude splint with pieces of a shattered crate. Your movements clumsy but focused. The immediate crisis of life and death is over. Now begins the overwhelming crisis of what comes next. Together, you limp to the gaping hole in the side of the chamber, the new, jagged balcony overlooking the world. The sight steals the breath from your lungs. The earthquake was not just yours. Below, Alexandria is burning. Entire sections of the city are flattened. Great clouds of dust still rising from collapsed tenements and villas in the moonlight. The orderly grid of the city is broken, chaotic. The great heptastadian causeway has cracks running through it like a shattered plate. It is a vision of utter devastation. And out on the dark, churning sea, you see them, the faint lights of approaching. Ships whose captains are scanning the sky for a light that is no longer there. They survived the quake at sea, but now they sail blind towards a coastline that may have reshaped itself, towards a port whose entrance may be choked with new, unseen hazards. "We have to light a fire," Damon says, his voice quiet but firm, echoing your own thoughts. Duty is a powerful anchor in a world that has come unmoored. You turn back to the ruin of the lantern chamber. The task seems impossible. The great pyre is buried. The floor is a treacherous maze of rubble. But the alternative, doing nothing, is unthinkable. The history of the Pharos is one of resilience. It has been shaken before, and it has been repaired. Future generations will face the same challenge, hoisting new stones, mixing new mortar, relighting this flame. You are simply the first in a new line of rebuilders. Your current debate is not about Roman concrete versus traditional mortar. It's about survival. Where can you possibly build a fire that won't bring the rest of this ruin down upon your heads? You find a spot on the windward side of the gallery, a section of the marble floor that seems relatively intact, cleared of the heaviest debris by the fall of the outer wall. Here, you decide, it's solid enough, and the wind will carry the smoke away from us. Then begins the most desperate work of your life. You become scavengers in the sky. You sift through the wreckage, searching for unburnt logs from the scattered pyre. You find a handful, scorched but still solid. It's not enough. You smash what's left of the wooden storage chests. You break apart a navigator's table that was somehow spared. Every splinter of wood is a victory. You find a fractured lead pipe, part of the ingenious drainage system that kept the upper levels dry, now twisted and useless. It's a sad reminder of the intricate order that has been so violently obliterated. Looking at the mess, you can't help but think your job title has been unofficially updated from Keeper of the Light to Senior High-Altitude Debris Manager. You build a small, crude ring of fallen stones, a makeshift fire pit to contain your pathetic collection of fuel. It's a child's bonfire on the ruins of a giant's hearth. The final, most important element is the flame itself. Your own tools are gone, buried or broken. But the earthquake, in its destruction, has provided. A dozen small fires still smolder around the chamber. You find a piece of rope that is burning at one end, a slow, steady fuse. You protect it from the wind and carry it like a sacred relic. To your new pyre, you touch the smoldering rope to a pile of dry splinters at the base of your carefully stacked wood. For a tense moment, it only smokes, a thin, acrid plume rising into the night. You blow on it gently, coaxing it, pleading with it. And then a small, hesitant flicker of orange appears. It catches, grows, and licks at the larger pieces of wood. A fire is born, but it is a pitiful thing. A smoky, flickering flame, no brighter than a common campfire. It casts a weak, trembling light against the immense, broken stones of the tower. It is a candle held up in a hurricane, but it is a light. It is a signal. It is a defiant roar of humanity against the crushing indifference of the earth. You and Damon, bruised, bleeding, and utterly exhausted, stand before your tiny flame, your silhouettes stark against the glow. The great light of Alexandria is dead, but in its place, a small spark of hope is, for now, burning. Years have passed since the night the world broke. The scar on your shoulder still aches when the sea winds blow from the north, and you walk with a slight limp that reminds you, with every step up the new staircase, of the cost of survival. But you survived, and so did the Pharos. It stands tall again, a testament to Roman engineering and Egyptian resilience. The lantern chamber has been rebuilt, perhaps not with the same ethereal grace as the Ptolemaic original, but with a brutalist strength. The new stone blocks are bound with Roman concrete, and the pillars are thicker, squatter, as if daring the earth to try again. The great pyre burns nightly, and the ships find their way to the world's greatest port. From a distance, all is as it was, but you know the secrets are in the details. The tower, like you, bears its scars, and it holds its greatest secret once more deep within the first square stage of the lighthouse, in a chamber with reinforced walls and a single heavy bronze door. It was kept safe, while you and Damon were fighting to keep a tiny, desperate flame alive in the ruins. It lay dormant, protected by the sheer mass of the tower's base. Now, it has been returned to its rightful place, not in the main lantern chamber, but in a specialized observatory one level below. It is the reason for the hushed visits from military legates and the most learned scholars of the Mausian. It is the subject of wild tales told in every tavern from here to Britannia. They call it the Mirror of Archimedes, though he had nothing to do with it. You and the handful of others who are entrusted with its care simply call it the Hyperesmos. The great tool dot is nothing like the curved bronze reflector used to amplify the nightly fire. That was a brute instrument. This is a marvel of optical science. It is a mosaic of nearly 300 smaller, hexagonal mirrors, each made of a highly polished silver-bronze alloy, fitted together with breathtaking precision into a shallow, parabolic dish nearly 20 feet across. Each small mirror can be minutely adjusted by a series of tiny bronze screws at its back, allowing the entire array to be focused to a single, terrifying point. This is the source of the legend, the fact that fuels the tavern talk. The Hyperesmos is, theoretically, a weapon. The story of Archimedes incinerating the Roman fleet at Syracuse is known to every educated man, and the generals who visit you look at the mirror with a hungry glint in their eyes, imagining the same fate for pirates or enemy fleets. They see a hammer for every nail on the horizon. And you've seen the proof of concept. Years ago, before the Great Quake, a test was conducted. On a windless, perfectly clear day at the height of summer, the mirror was uncovered, its hundreds of panels angled to catch the sun and project its power onto a small, rocky islet a mile out to sea. You watched through smoked glass as the rock began to steam, then glow cherry red, the very stone itself seeming to melt and vitrify under the silent, invisible assault. The power is real. The potential is undeniable, but in all your years as a keeper, its use as a weapon has only ever been a threat, a silent deterrent sleeping beneath its canvas cover. This is the heart of the great debate that swirls around it. The soldiers see a death ray. The scholars of the library, however, have other theories. And you, its guardian, know there is truth in all of them. The Pharos was not just a lighthouse. Its immense height made it a premier astronomical observatory. The frame of the Great Mirror is marked with incredibly fine etchings, lines that correspond to the rising and setting of key constellations, marks for the solstices and equinoxes. On clear nights, by angling it just so, you can use it as a massive, reflecting telescope, bringing the moon so close you feel you could touch its scarred, pockmarked surface. It reveals the dance of Jupiter's moons, a secret celestial waltz. Its purpose is not just to burn, but to see, to understand. Its most common, practical function is also its most mundane. On days when the sky is choked with a high, white haze, the sun's light is diffuse, and the gleam of the lighthouse's marble is lost. On these days, you and another keeper will uncover the hyperesmos. You don't focus it to a single point. Instead, you use a broader, less precise alignment to gather all that scattered daylight into one brilliant, flashing beacon. A daytime lighthouse. For the sailors squinting at the horizon, it is a flash of impossible brightness, a star appearing, in a cloudy sky, confirming their position. No fire, no smoke. Just a silent, powerful flash of pure, concentrated daylight. The merchants telling stories of burning fleets would probably be disappointed to learn that the mirror's primary job is to act as a celestial signal flare on a gloomy Tuesday dot. So what is it? A weapon of war? A scientific instrument? Or a sophisticated signaling device? It is all of them. By manipulating a series of levers that control the mirror's primary angle, you can flash coded messages, a helograph on a massive scale, communicating with friendly naval patrols far out at sea. The complex codes, the pages of astronomical charts, the precise calculations for focal points based on the time of day and year. These are your secrets now, kept in a locked room, a library of forbidden knowledge. You are more than a keeper of a flame. You are the guardian of a power that can create and destroy, enlighten and intimidate. Today, your task is simple maintenance. You stand before the great mirror, which is draped in a heavy, oiled canvas shroud to protect it from the salt and dust. The air in the chamber is cool and still. The only sound is the distant whisper of the wind from the open gallery above. You reach for the rope to pull back the cover, to expose the hundreds of polished eyes that, together, form the single gaze of Alexandria, the tool that reflects the city's genius, its ambition, and its most dangerous secrets. With a soft whisper of heavy fabric sliding over smooth metal, you pull back the canvas shroud. The light in the chamber, once muted, explodes into 1,000 fractured pieces. The 294 hexagonal eyes of the hyperesmos catch the ambient light from the gallery above and hurl it back at you, a dazzling, disorienting mosaic. For a moment, you see your own reflection repeated almost 300 times, a silent army of keepers looking back at you. This is the Eye of Alexandria, and today you are here to ensure it sees clearly. The maintenance is a slow, reverent ritual, a form of mechanical meditation. You do not simply wipe it down, you commune with it. Your first task is the polishing, a battle against the microscopic tyrannies of salt and dust. From a small wooden chest, you take your tools, a soft, lint-free linen cloth, a bowl of fine gray powder made from ground cuttlefish bone, and a flask of pure olive oil. You mix the powder and oil into a thin, abrasive paste. Then you begin. You work on a single hexagonal panel at a time. A small dab of the paste, and then the gentle, circular motion of the cloth, again and again and again. The pressure must be perfect, too soft, and the grime remains. Too hard, and you risk leaving a microscopic scratch that could corrupt the perfection of the reflected light. As you polish, you lean in close, your breath held. You are not just cleaning a surface. You are restoring a piece of the sky. It is painstaking, repetitive work. For every great philosopher in the city below, debating the nature of perfection, you are here, physically creating it, 1 6-inch hexagon at a time. This intimate work allows you to appreciate the genius of the machine's hidden heart, the complex web of gears, levers, and counterweights that gives it life. The Hellenistic engineers, men like Ctesibius and Hero, were masters of such things, and their legacy is humming quietly in the bronze bones of this device. You finish polishing a panel and move to check its mechanism. Behind each hexagon is a finely threaded bronze screw, so delicate it looks like jewelry. A quarter turn of this screw with a special key will minutely alter the panel's angle. Checking each of the 294 screws for corrosion or stiffness is a task that would drive a lesser man mad. For you, it is a conversation with the builders. Look closely at the gear teeth on the larger control mechanisms, the ones that connect to the master controls. Historians and metallurgists in the future will argue about how such precise instruments were made. But you can see the truth, right? Here. While the main shape of the gear was likely cast in a mold, you can see the faint, parallel lines of a master craftsman's file on the edge of each tooth. They were hand-finished, each one brought to a state of perfection to ensure a smooth, catch-free rotation. It's a humbling reminder that this grand machine, this wonder of technology, ultimately comes down to the steady hand and sharp eye of a single man. Once the small mechanisms are checked, you turn your attention to the large ones. The entire multi-ton dish is balanced on a central pivot and controlled by a system of massive counterweights that slide within deep channels carved into the stone walls. Two keepers can aim this colossal mirror with pinpoint precision, not through brute force, but through the sublime grace of applied physics. Your job is to assure that grace. You take a clay pot of thick, rendered mutton fat and a wide brush. The great poets write about the music of the spheres, but as far as you're concerned, the true sound of celestial mechanics is the high-pitched squeal of a pulley that needs more grease. You lean into the channels, applying a thick, liberal coat of the foul-smelling lubricant, ensuring the massive stone counterweights will slide with a whisper, not a groan. But how do you know where to point it? Guesswork is not an option when wielding the sun as a tool. Bolted to the side of the great mirror's frame is another smaller marvel, a complex aiming device, a sort of mechanical calculator. It is a series of interconnected bronze rings, sighting vanes, and geared pointers. Much like a dioptra or an astrolabe, but far more advanced. To aim the hyperesmos, you first input the variables. You adjust one ring for the time of day, another for the season. You use the sighting vanes to pinpoint your target on the horizon. As you make these adjustments, the intricate gears within, the device whir and click, and a set of bronze pointers moves to indicate the exact degree of rotation and angle of tilt required for the main mirror. It's a genius contrivance, translating complex trigonometry into a simple set of instructions. Turn the wheel until this arrow aligns with that mark. You run a diagnostic, moving the empty mirror through its full range of motion. You turn the large capstan wheel, and with a low hum, the entire dish rotates smoothly to the west. You pull the lever that controls the counterweights, and the dish tilts backwards, its multifaceted face turning towards the sky. The machinery is sound. The eye is clean, its mechanisms responsive. It is in a state of perfect readiness, a silent, sleeping giant. You stand back, wiping the grease from your hands, and survey your work. The mirror gleams, a flawless concave constellation of man-made stars. It is beautiful, but it is a cold, indifferent beauty. It is an instrument of pure logic, and it waits patiently for a command. Your task is done. You are the keeper of the chi. Machine, the polisher of the eye. You have prepared it to perform its function, whether that is to light the way for a friendly ship, to confirm a scientific theory, or to rain fire down upon the enemies of the state. It is ready. And so are you. The order, when it comes, arrives with the swift, quiet formality of state business. 2 days after your meticulous maintenance, the tranquility of the observatory is broken by the rhythmic tramp of sandals. A Roman legate, his armor polished, to a finish almost as fine as your mirror, stands in the doorway, flanked by 2 guards. He carries a papyrus scroll sealed with the official crest of the prefect of Egypt. He does not speak. He simply unrolls the scroll and holds it for you to read. The message is brief, written in crisp, unambiguous Latin. A pirate vessel, a persistent nuisance that has been preying on grain shipments near the Pelusiac mouth of the Nile, has been sighted. Its last known position and heading are marked on an accompanying sea chart. The order is not to sink it, not to engage it. The order contains a single chillingly elegant word: dissuadir. Dissuade. You look from the scroll to the legate, whose face is an impassive mask. It is much easier to command the sun, you reflect, than it is to understand the precise intentions of a military man. You give a single, sharp nod. The legate has brought the command. You will provide the thunder. You turn to Lycomedes, your young apprentice, who has been standing silently in the corner. His eyes are wide, but his hands are steady. He has trained for this day. This is no drill. The preparation is a silent, focused ballet of procedure. You unlock the heavy wooden chest and remove the operational keys and the secret charts. You spread the sea chart on the table, the legate's finger tapping the small ink symbol of the pirate ship. You then turn to the aiming device, the bronze mechanical calculator bolted to the mirror's frame. The sun is high, a little past its zenith. The sky is a brilliant, cloudless blue. The conditions are perfect. You begin the calculations, your hands moving with practiced certainty. You adjust the rings for the solar altitude and the azimuth. You input the target's coordinates. The gears of the device click and whir, a quiet, metallic whisper. After a moment, the bronze pointers settle, indicating the precise numbers for the hyperesnes's orientation. The machine has told you how to aim. Uncover the eye. You command LYCOMEDE stop together. You pull the ropes that draw back the heavy canvas shroud. The effect is instantaneous. The cool, shaded chamber is flooded with a light so intense it feels like a physical blow. The air itself seems to brighten, and the collected power of the 294 mirrors paints a dazzling, blinding spot of light on the far wall. You and Lycomedes don special goggles, fitted with panes of smoked obsidian, to protect your eyes. The Roman legate and his guards, caught unprepared, flinch back, shielding their faces. Begin alignment, you say, your voice low and steady. You each take a station at one of the control capstans, following the numbers from the aiming device. You begin to turn the wheels. With a low, resonant hum, the great dish begins to move. It rotates slowly, majestically, a giant flower turning to face the sun. Another lever is pulled, and the dish tilts downwards, aiming its collected fury towards the distant sea. Now comes the fine-tuning. You move to the master control panel, a series of small, delicate levers that govern the focusing screws. While Lycomedes keeps the main dish aligned, your job is to bring the 294 separate beams of light into a single, cohesive point. You peer through the sighting scope, a long tube with crosshairs, and find the target. It is a tiny black speck on the vast blue expanse, a fly on an ocean of sapphire. You make the final, minute adjustments. You feel the subtle shift in the air as the invisible forces align. The energy in the room is palpable, a silent, static pressure that makes the hairs on your arms stand up. You look at the target, then at the legate. He gives a curt, decisive nod. Engage, you say. Lycomedes makes the final fractional turn of the focusing wheel, and across the miles, the silent judgment of the sun is delivered. There is no sound, no thunder, no bolt of lightning. There is only a sudden star-bright glint on the surface of the sea, just ahead of the pirate vessel's bow. For a heartbeat, this impossibly bright spot hangs there, and then the sea itself erupts. The water at the focal point flashes into steam, exploding upwards in a massive churning plume of white. It is as if a sea monster has breached the surface. A geyser of boiling brine and vapor dot through your spyglass. You watch the result. Pirate ship, which had been sailing confidently, is thrown into utter chaos. They would have heard the roar of the sea exploding. They would have felt the wave of intense, searing heat. You see the tiny figures of the crew scrambling on their deck, pointing, shouting, their confident predation turned to primal terror. Their ship abruptly heels over, turning so sharply it nearly capsizes and begins to flee back the way it came. Its sail desperate to catch any wind that will carry it away from the terrifying, sun-drenched spot on the sea. The demonstration is over. Dissuasion complete dot as you methodically begin the shutdown procedure. Covering the mirror and locking the controls, the legate allows himself a thin, satisfied smile. Hephaestus's endless quiver, he murmurs, referring to the god of the forge. A weapon that never runs out of arrows. He believes he has seen a weapon. The pirates believe they have seen a god's wrath. But you know the truth, the secret that fuels the academic debate. You know that at this range, with the slight afternoon haze, you could not have set their sail alight. You could have scorched their deck, perhaps, but not incinerated them as the legends claim. You were ordered to dissuade, and you used the mirror's power to create a terrifying spectacle, a psychological blow far more effective than an actual attack. Lycomed's whispers, they will have quite a story to tell. You nod grimly. And it will be the right one. The legend is more powerful than the reality, and your job is to maintain them both. You have just added another verse to the epic poem of the Pharos, a tale of a lighthouse that can command the sun and boil the sea. And you, the humble keeper, are its silent, secret author. The echoes of the pirate's dissuasion fade faster than the setting sun. The legate's praise, the military reports, the hushed whispers of the other keepers, they all recede, leaving you once again with the familiar, comfortable silence of your post. Days like that, full of tension and import, are the exceptions. Your life, for the most part, is a long, slow rhythm of routine and observation. Today is a day for observation. That you stand on the gallery of the lantern chamber, leaning against a cool stone pillar. The morning fire has been fed, the brasswork polished, the duties discharged. Now, there is only the view. Below you, sprawled from the desert to the sea, is the city, Alexandria. From this height, 300 feet in the sea. Sky, it is not a city of people, but of patterns. It is a living map, a human hive rendered in marble, mud brick, and men. You have spent more of your life looking down on this city than living in it, and you know its moods and its motions better than any cartographer. Your eye is first drawn to the grand avenues, the arteries of the metropolis. You can see the entire length of the Canopic Way, a ruler-straight gash of pale stone cutting through the heart of the city, lined with its famous shady colonnades. You watch the flow of life along it, the slow, ponderous movement of a merchant's ox cart laden with amphorae from the harbor, the swift, arrogant passage of a wealthy noble's litter, carried on the shoulders of 8 sweating slaves, the disciplined, rhythmic march of a Roman patrol, their helmets and shields catching the sun in a single, unified glint. You see it all, but you hear none of it. It is a silent film playing out just for you. From this divine vantage point, the city's complex, multicultural soul is laid bare. It is not one city, but many, clustered together around the harbor. To the east is the Bruchion, the royal quarter, the domain of the Greeks and Romans. It is a place of order and right angles, of gleaming white villas with manicured gardens, of grand public buildings like the Mauseon and the Great Library. You see the green smudge of the Paneon, the city park with its own spiral path, a tiny, earthbound echo of your own ascent. Then, hugging the western horn of the harbor, is the Rhacotis district. This is the old city, The Egyptian heart, a chaotic, organic tangle of narrow, winding alleys and mud-brick tenements stacked one atop the other. It is denser, darker, more alive dot, and between them, the great Agra, the marketplace. This is where the carefully separated worlds collide in a chaotic, vibrant explosion of humanity. Historians in their quiet libraries may debate whether Alexandria is a true melting pot or merely a collection of separate communities living in a tense truce. From up here, you see the truth is both. You see the distinct quarters, the clusters of culture. But you also see the Agra, where a Greek philosopher in his clean white robes haggles with a Nubian spice merchant, where a Roman centurion buys fish from an Egyptian fisherman, where Jewish scholars argue metaphysics next to Syrian glassblowers hawking their wares. It's the one place where the city's carefully drawn lines dissolve into a single noisy, striving mass. It's a good thing sound doesn't travel this far, you think, for the combined roar of that much commerce could surely frighten the gulls. Your life is one of profound sensory isolation. Your world smells of sea salt, hot stone, and the clean smoke of well-tended fire. Theirs, you know, is a rich stew of odors. The divine scent of baking bread from the communal ovens. The sharp tang of wine from a spilled cask. The cloying sweetness of perfume. The foul stench of an open sewer. The exotic promise of spices from the far corners of the earth. Your world is filled with the whisper of the wind and the crackle of flame. Theirs is a symphony of noise. The shouting of vendors, the laughter of children, the rumble of iron-shod wheels on stone, the braying of donkeys, the endless, energetic hum of 500,000 lives being lived all at once. You see their lives in miniature, their dramas stripped of sound and fury. You see a wedding procession snake its way through the streets of the Jewish quarter, a tiny, joyous ribbon of bright color. Not long after, you witness a funeral barge being pulled across a canal in Rakotis, a slow, solemn procession of black. You see a brawl erupt outside a tavern, a brief, frantic explosion of flailing limbs that disperses as quickly as it began. You see lovers meeting in a hidden garden, two small figures merging into one in the shade of a cypress tree. From this height, the greatest passions and the deepest sorrows of men are rendered as fleeting, silent spectacles. The rich man and the beggar, the pious and the profane, are all just specks of color, moving through a grid of their own making. It is a perspective, you imagine, that would deeply annoy them all if they knew you had it dot as the sun begins to dip. Towards the west, the city starts to change its character. The shadows lengthen, and one by one, tiny lights begin to appear. A lamp in a window, a torch in a doorway, the glow from a cookshop. Soon, the entire city is no longer a map of stone, but a reflection of the night sky, a constellation of human fire scattered across the dark earth. You feel an immense, aching sense of connection to them, to the countless souls you protect. But you also feel an unbridgeable distance. You are their guardian star, their fixed point in a chaotic world. But you are not, and can never be, one of them. Your world is the lonely grandeur of the sky. Theirs is the glorious, messy, vibrant hive. You turn from the breathtaking view back toward the pyre. The night is coming, and your own light must be ready. The night is deep and clear. Your great fire paints the underside of the clouds with a soft orange glow, a false dawn that lasts until the true one arrives. You stand your watch, a solitary figure pacing the circumference of the gallery. Your eyes, accustomed to the vast darkness, catch a flicker. It is impossibly distant, a tiny spark of man-made light on the horizon, a ship's lantern fighting its own small battle against the immense blackness of the great sea. You watch the lonely light, and you think of the souls it carries, their weary bodies, their hopeful hearts. For a moment, you let your mind drift, and you are no longer Demetrios, the keeper. Your name is Gallus. You are a merchant of spices, and you are very, very tired. You are cold. A damp, clinging chill has settled deep into your bones. A souvenir. From the storm you barely survived 2 nights ago off the coast of Crete. The deck of your ship, the sea nymph, lurches and groans beneath you, its timbers complaining after weeks at sea. The air is thick with the smell of bilge water, stale rations, and the nervous sweat of the crew. You pull your woolen cloak tighter around your shoulders and stare into the impenetrable darkness ahead. This is always the worst part of any voyage. The final approach, a blind gamble against unseen rocks and unpredictable currents. Your cargo, safely stowed in the hold, is worth a fortune pepper from the Malabar coast, cinnamon from Taprobane, and a small, priceless cache of clothes that have traveled across a dozen seas and deserts to reach you. Your mind, always a ledger, calculates the potential profits, but your heart only feels the gnawing anxiety of the final mile. Light! By all the gods, light! The shout comes from the lookout, perched precariously in the crow's nest. A collective sigh of relief, almost. A prayer ripples through the crew. You scramble to the bow, your heart pounding, and you see it. It is exactly where the charts say it will be. A single perfect point of light, as steady and brilliant as Jupiter on a winter's night. But this is no planet. It is a star created by men. It is the Pharos. It is the end of your ordeal. The sailors around you begin their rituals. Old Phrixus, the ship's master, mutters a prayer to Poseidon and spits into the sea for luck. A young Syrian deckhand makes a sign to ward off evil spirits. They tell Thales of the lighthouse that its light is a divine fire, that its keeper is an immortal sorcerer who commands the winds. You are a practical man of commerce. You believe in numbers and contracts, not magic. But even you cannot deny the profound sense of awe, the feeling that you are in the presence of something more than just stone and fire. This light is a promise. It is the promise of a safe harbor, a warm bed, a hot meal, and most importantly, a bustling market where your fragrant cargo will turn into cold, heavy gold. You have sailed in other waters, in the Black Sea and along the wild coasts of Hispania, where you would never dare approach land in the dark. There, captains rely on the faint glimmer of the stars and the terrifying guesswork of sounding leads, navigating with a prayer and a healthy dose of fear. It is a fool's game, but here, approaching Alexandria, the rules are different. Pharos transforms navigation from a gamble into a science. You sail towards the light with a confidence that feels like its own form of wealth. You grumble to yourself that the port taxes you will pay tomorrow will be astronomical. The light is never free, but it is a price you will gladly pay. It is infinitely cheaper than a shipwreck dot. As you draw closer, the pinpoint of light blossoms. It becomes a brilliant, blazing beacon, so powerful it seems to push back the darkness. It paints a shimmering golden path on the surface of the waves, a welcoming road leading you home. The oppressive blackness of the sea is replaced by a world of illuminated water and shadow. You can see the shape of the waves, the spray coming. Off your own ship's bow. Dawn arrives as you reach the outer harbor, and the lighthouse reveals its second marvel. As the sun's first rays strike it, the tower itself seems to ignite. It is an immense pillar of gleaming white marble, so tall it seems to scrape the sky. A monument to the staggering wealth and ambition of this city. It is not a building. It is a declaration. It says, "Here is the center of the world. Here is civilization. Bring us your goods, your ambitions, you're tired, you're poor. We have need of them all." You think of the sheer cost, the manpower, the genius required, and your merchant's brain briefly tries to calculate how many tons of pepper it would take to build such a thing, before giving up the task as impossible. The weariness of the voyage. begins to slough off you, replaced by the familiar welcome buzz of commercial anticipation. You can already smell the city on the morning breeze, the scent of wood smoke, baking bread, and the rich, loamy smell of the Nile. Your journey is over. The sea nymph has reached its safe harbor. The ship, a vessel filled with the hopes of men. Like Gallus, glides past the breakwater as the morning sun climbs higher. And you, Demetrios, standing on your high gallery, watch it enter the port. You see the sailors securing the mooring ropes, the merchants already gathering on the quay. You do not know their names. You will never learn of Gallus's prophets, of the storm he endured, or of the quiet prayer of thanks he offered when he first saw your light. You only know that one more ship has made it home. Your lonely work through the long, dark night has been given its silent, anonymous meaning. You turn from the rail and go to check on the fire. The years have been kind, but they have not forgotten you. They have silvered your hair, carved deeper lines around your eyes, and stiffened the limp you earned the night the earth tried to reclaim this tower. You are Demetrios, Master Keeper, of the Pharos, though your duties now are more of teaching than of tending. You sit on a stone bench in the gallery, a place worn smooth by your own endless pacing, and watch the afternoon sun cast long shadows across the city. Your life has been a study in constancy, a single unwavering devotion to this pillar of stone and its sacred flame. Your hands, resting on your knees, are gnarled and powerful, their very shape dictated by a lifetime of gripping ropes, turning levers, and hoisting fuel. You are as much a part of this lighthouse as the mortar between its blocks. But the world below, the world you have watched for so long, is not constant. It is changing slowly, inexorably. The golden age that built this wonder is fading, like a fresco exposed to the sun for too long. You see the signs in the harbor. The grand triremes of the Ptolemaic fleet are a distant memory, and even thee. Proud Roman naval delegations are fewer and farther between. The ships that now crowd the port are mostly functional. Heavy-bellied grain barges, the Annona must be fed, but the flamboyant merchant vessels carrying silks and ivories seem less frequent. The focus of the empire, you here, is shifting. East to a new capital, a new Rome called Constantinople. Alexandria is still a vital organ of the empire, but it is no longer its beating heart. The city feels older. More tired dot, you see the change in the very skyline. For centuries, the roof of the great Serapeum temple dominated the Rakotis district. Now, new shapes appear. Simple, rectangular buildings with pitched roofs and tall, thin towers. Churches. They belong to the followers of the Nazarene, a faith that has grown from a whispered secret to a powerful force in the city. At dusk, you can sometimes hear the faint, alien clang of their bells, a sound that challenges the ancient rhythm of temple hymns and public proclamations. You see their processions, men in drab, dark robes, their faces stern and focused inward, so different from the vibrant, chaotic polytheism they seek to replace. You wonder what they think of your fire, this great pagan beacon you offer up to Hephaestus and Poseidon each night. Do they see it as a symbol of defiance? Or are you, and your ancient duties, already becoming a relic in their eyes, a curiosity? From an age that is rapidly passing away, you find yourself wryly thinking that their god seems to prefer the great indoors, which is certainly a wiser choice for one's back than hauling timber up a spiral ramp. And with these changes comes a deeper fear, one that you share only with the oldest stones of this tower. It is the heart of the true debate that will one day decide the fate of the Pharos. It is not about earthquakes. It is about will. After the great quake of your youth, the city and the empire rebuilt you with vigor, for the lighthouse was a symbol of their power and prosperity. But now, you watch the young keepers you train. They are good men, they are diligent, but they lack the sacred terror. the profound reverence for the machinery and the flame that was drilled into you. To them, it is a prestigious job, a government post. To you, it has been a holy trust. You fear a time will come when another great tremor will shake this tower, and the rulers of that future day will look at the cost of rebuilding, at the logistics of hoisting new stones, and they will simply decide against it. That the flame will die not for a lack of fuel, or from the fury of the earth, but from the cold, hard calculation of an accountant. You think of the great mirror, the hyperesmos, still shrouded in its chamber below. Lycomedes is its guardian. Now, you have passed the secrets to him, the charts, the keys, the knowledge. Will he ever be called upon to use it? Or will it remain a sleeping legend, its true purpose forgotten, until one day it is dismantled for its valuable bronze, its genius melted down into coins or statues for a new god? The thought sends a chill through you that has nothing to do with the evening breeze. The sun sets, and the sky puts on its nightly spectacle of purple and orange. Lycomedes, his own hair now flecked with gray, approaches you with the deep respect one gives to a living monument. "Master Demetrios," he says softly, "the night fire is ready to be lit. You are not required on watch. Your time is your own." But you nod and push yourself to your feet. You follow him to the great pyre, where the young keepers stand. Ready, you watch as Lycomedes himself takes the torch and lights the flame. As the familiar whoosh fills the chamber and the heat presses against your face, you do not see the fire of today. You see all the fires of your life. You see yourself as a young boy, awestruck on his first day. You see the terror of the earthquake in the dancing flames. You see the silent, searing power of the great mirror. You see the faces of all the keepers. You have known, their features illuminated for a moment before fading back into memory. You have spent your life feeding this star so that others might find their way home. And now, your own journey is nearing its harbor. The flame is bright. The watch is in good hands. A profound, quiet peace settles over you. Your work is done. And so, the old keeper rests, his long watch finally over. The great fire, now tended by other hands, continues its eternal rhythm, a steady heartbeat of light against the darkness. The powerful beam sweeps out over the calm, dark water, a silent, reassuring gesture. It touches the distant sails of a ship, whose crew sleeps soundly, their trust placed in that unwavering star. It illuminates a pod of dolphins. They're sleek, bodies arching through the waves in a graceful, silent ballet. The light asks for nothing, and it gives everything. It is a promise, a guide, a silent guardian for a sleeping world. Feel the gentle, hypnotic rhythm of that light. A slow sweep of brightness, followed by a soft, comforting darkness. A deep, slow breath in and out. The worries of the world, the complexities of cities and empires, of commerce and conflict, all fade away, reduced to a distant, gentle hum. All that matters is this peaceful, steady rhythm. The rocking of a boat on a calm sea, the whisper of the wind over ancient stone, the soft, warm glow that holds the vast darkness at bay. You are safe here. You are sheltered. The light is watching over you. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be. You can simply let go, drifting on these quiet waves, deeper and deeper into a calm and dreamless sleep. The old keeper has found his peace, and now you can find yours. The light remains, a steady, faithful presence, ensuring all is well, all is calm, until the morning comes. You've reached the end of another cozy nappy tale. Sleep well, and remember, you're always welcome here. Sweet dreams, nappy friend.